I always thought my boyfriend fell in love with me at first sight, but in reality, he added the wrong contact. The phone numbers between me and his dream girl only differed by 2 digits. He originally planned to just go with it and marry me. Until that girl confessed to him. He asked his friends, troubled, "What should I do? We've been together for 7 years. It's not like I don't have feelings for her, but she is definitely more attractive." Chapter 1. I changed my flight to come home early, planning to surprise my boyfriend. However, the moment I stepped into the house, I heard Christopher talking on the phone on the balcony. He said, "I was already planning to propose to her. I even bought the ring." My breath suddenly tightened. A smile crept onto my face without me even realizing it. I was going to call out to Christopher to help me with my luggage, but at that moment, I decided to keep quiet. This is our 7th year together. Our relationship has stabilized. Even the business we started together has been expanding. For the past few months, I've had the feeling that Christopher has been secretly preparing to propose. Hearing the details now, my first reaction was to quietly leave, so as not to spoil the surprise. However, just as I was about to turn around, I heard Christopher sigh, "But I really feel a bit unsatisfied." Just this simple, casual sentence, it sent the blood rushing to my head. My hands and feet felt weak, and I almost couldn't stand. I don't know what the person on the other end said, but Christopher chuckled, as if reminiscing, "Yeah, you know, the first girl I had a crush on was really beautiful." Tears immediately streamed down my face. Logic told me not to overthink this. I couldn't blame my boyfriend for having liked someone else before meeting me. But I've been with Christopher for 7 whole years. Why is he still hung up on the first girl he ever liked? Just as I was about to question him, Christopher said, "All right, you get back to work. Let's grab a meal sometime." He hung up the phone and turned around. Our eyes met, catching me completely off guard. I clearly saw the panic in Christopher's eyes, but he quickly put on a smile. "Rachel, why are you home early?" That smile was pure and genuine, just like always. If I hadn't heard that sigh, I would have hugged him tight right now. I would have excitedly told him all the funny stories from my trip. But now, I just stared blankly at my boyfriend of 7 years. He suddenly seemed like a stranger, without expression. I asked Christopher, "Who were you on the phone with?" His gaze dropped, and he mumbled, "A buddy." I blinked, holding back my tears. "What were you talking about?" "Just random stuff." "Were you talking about a girl?" I rarely confronted Christopher like this. The smile on his face slowly faded. "Of course not." "Do you want to call him back and see if I was telling the truth?" He still sounded casual, because he knew I wouldn't. We've always trusted each other, but can I really trust him? Suppressing the ache in my throat, I reached out to Christopher. "Give me your phone. I'll call your buddy and ask him myself." Chapter 2. Christopher instinctively tightened his grip on the phone, but he knew that if he refused, it would look even more suspicious. So he frowned slightly, then smiled as he walked over and put his hands on my shoulders. "What's going on? Why are you so upset the moment you get home? Was your business trip that bad?" Business trips can be stressful. Christopher and I co-founded a company together. He's in charge of design, while I handle everything else. Business isn't easy, but no matter how hard it gets out there, coming back to the home Christopher and I share always gives me peace of mind. However, Christopher's attempt to dodge the issue only fueled my anger. I stood on my toes to pry his fingers off, trying to snatch his phone. "I heard everything. Just let me get the truth." Christopher finally let go. He let me take the phone, even going as far as to help me pull up his buddy's contact info, all while smiling, still grumbling. "What did you hear? You just got home." The phone was in my hand, but my muddled thoughts suddenly became clear in that moment. I guess that calling wouldn't help. Christopher's friend would definitely cover for him. That's what they call loyalty. If I wanted to know whether my boyfriend had a guilty conscience, I had to figure it out myself. I paused for a second, then put on an angry expression again. "I heard you saying you'd take a pretty girl out for dinner. So, who's this pretty girl you've met lately?" I deliberately twisted Christopher's words. I wanted him to think I had only overheard a few harmless phrases. If Christopher had nothing to hide, he wouldn't react. But after a few seconds of hesitation, he actually looked relieved. Call him. Go ahead. But I told my buddy I'd take him out for dinner. Christopher's smile was calm and collected. He was probably relieved, thinking he had dodged a bullet, but my heart was growing colder with every second. I sniffled and said, "Okay," pretending to accept his explanation. He pressed me down onto the couch and began massaging the back of my neck. "Feels good, right? Your neck's always stiff. It must have been uncomfortable on the plane. Haven't I always massaged it for you? Tough day. I get it. Feeling grumpy is normal. Do you feel a little better after letting it out on me? All these years, my boyfriend has known me inside and out. He's always been attentive, always aware of my needs. But he could also look me in the eye and lie, without flinching, without hesitation." Chapter 3. Christopher and I were each other's first love. We met in our freshman year of college. So, the first girl Christopher ever liked might have been someone from high school. I was thinking about how I could ask his high school friends about it, but I never expected the truth to come to me so quickly. A few days later, I saw a beautiful girl in Christopher's studio. Her features were delicate, her presence striking, and even in an oversized t-shirt, she exuded a subtle allure. It turned out she was my college alumna, Monica. We weren't in the same department, but I knew of her. She was so stunning that many guys pursued her in college. After graduating, she moved to Shanghai to work as a model, gaining a bit of fame. I didn't expect her to be back in town recently. Even more, I didn't expect her to be collaborating with Christopher. I walked over to greet her. "Hello, MS Law. I'm your fellow alumna from a university, Rachel Lee." I also took out my phone to add her on WeChat. As one of the staff walked by, they called me boss lady. Monica's head shot up. It was as if she only started really assessing me at that moment. In her beautiful black eyes, a complicated light flickered. "So, you're Mr. Shin's girlfriend. I've heard he's very steady and sincere, and treats you really well. Not only did he give you full control of the company, but he also follows your every whim." Everyone praised Christopher for how considerate he was toward me in our relationship. Apparently, Monica had heard about it too. I lowered my head awkwardly. "Let me update your contact name." Then, I saw her phone number. I was shocked. What a coincidence. Our phone numbers are nearly identical. Monica raised an eyebrow, as if she didn't believe me. But when she saw the numbers, she froze. Side by side, our phone numbers were nearly the same. At a glance, all the digits were identical except for the last three. Mine ended in 718, hers in 178. It would be easy to mix them up. Monica tugged at the corner of her mouth, seemingly thoughtful. "I get it. Since we're both alumni, we both use the numbers assigned by the university, which explains why they're so similar. This really is quite the coincidence." For some reason, I felt Monica's tone carried a deeper meaning. Before I could respond, a cough came from behind me. Christopher had walked over from the adjacent room. He calmly positioned himself between Monica and me. "Rachel, you should go work. We're about to start the shoot." I glanced at the camera in his hands, slightly surprised. "You're doing the shoot yourself?" Back when Christopher and I first started our business, he would take the photos. But after we hired more professional photographers, he stopped handling that part. Christopher nodded. "Yeah, the photographer we usually work with isn't available. I want to finish the shoot quickly so we can release the new products sooner." I didn't mind his dedication to work, but as my gaze lingered on his slightly trembling hands, my heart clenched. Why was Christopher nervous while I was chatting with Monica? Unless he had something to hide. I calmly smiled at them. "All right. I won't bother you two then." But I secretly dialed my backup phone, set it to silent, and placed it in the corner. On the surface, I sat in my upstairs office, focused on answering emails, but through my earphones, I could occasionally hear snippets of their conversation. At first, it was just regular talk about the shoot, until after they wrapped up, and the others left one by one. That's when I finally heard Monica's slow voice. "So, tell me, how did you and Rachel meet?" Chapter 4. In my eyes, Christopher and Monica were just business collaborators. Discussing personal relationships seemed a bit intrusive. Maybe Christopher sensed this too, so he quietly said, "You don't need to know." But his evasiveness only had the opposite effect. Monica suddenly raised her voice. "Why shouldn't I know? I want to know." "Christopher, why did you start dating Rachel while asking for my number? Do you think I won't go to her right now and tell her you're a cheater? Playing both sides?" Her words came out quickly, each one hitting me like a shockwave. Christopher knew Monica from before? He even asked for her number. My grip on the phone weakened, barely able to hold it. I was on the verge of storming down there to confront Christopher. But in the next moment, my heart steadied, because I heard Christopher curse. "Enough. I added the wrong person, okay? I was trying to add you, but by some twist of fate, I added Rachel instead. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for losing your phone that day and only giving me your number verbally." It was noisy in the room, and I misheard. "But you've seen it now. I'm happy with Rachel, so don't tell her about this." Every word Christopher said seemed to be for my benefit, but they were like heavy stones, crushing my chest. Christopher wasn't dating both me and Monica at the same time. In fact, it was because of Monica that he accidentally added me on WeChat. For the past 7 years, I'd been lost in the sweetness of our relationship. I never realized that the happiness in my hands was meant for someone else. Even though I came first in the end, I was still the second choice. Amidst the ringing in my ears, I faintly heard Monica's sweet voice again. "So, do you regret it?" Christopher's firm response echoed back. "I don't regret it." That sentence was like a lifeline. It pulled me out of the endless spiral of overthinking. I clutched my chest, my heart pounding wildly. But in the next moment, Monica's lazy, drawn-out voice drifted over. "Well, I regret it, Mr. Shin. To make up for my regret, why don't you take me out for dinner tonight?" Chapter 5. Christopher's phone rang at just the right moment, interrupting their conversation. I didn't get to hear the result. I sat in my office, waiting for Christopher to come get me. Time seemed to slow down. If he came to take me home, I might forgive him, because, after all, he did say those words, "I don't regret it." Even if the 18-year-old Christopher had fallen for Monica at first sight, I'm the one who's been by his side for the last 7 years. As long as he was honest, I would give him a chance to make it right. I don't know how long it took, but eventually, there was a knock at the door. Christopher looked like he had something on his mind, his eyes distant. I kept guessing what decision he would make, but then Christopher spoke. "Rachel, my buddy just called. He needs my help. So I'm heading out. You can have dinner on your own tonight." His voice was so calm, as if nothing was wrong. I used all my strength to keep my emotions in check. "What about Monica?" Christopher's Adam's apple bobbed once. He asked in an even tone. "Why do you ask about her?" I held back my heartache, forcing a smile. "Monica and I are schoolmates. We didn't know each other back then, but it's fate that we meet now. I was just thinking, how about I invite her to dinner tonight? Why don't you cancel your plans with your friend, and the 3 of us can eat together?" This was my final warning to him, but Christopher shook his head again. "Some other time." The door closed heavily. In that moment, the world seemed to spin around me. I suddenly found it all laughable. I actually laughed out loud. I didn't know if I was laughing at Christopher's impatience, or at myself for still holding on to hope for him. But the truth was now crystal clear. The girl who made Christopher's heart race for the first time, she had made his heart race again. Chapter 6. 7 years ago, Christopher and I volunteered at the same charity event. At the time, he didn't leave much of an impression on me. But that evening after the event, Christopher added me on WeChat. "Hello, I'm Christopher, a freshman at B University. Can we be friends? We met earlier today." Since I remembered him, I accepted the friend request. I thought it was just about networking. I didn't expect our conversations to click so well. We chatted nonstop for 2 weeks. Then Christopher gathered the courage to ask me, "Lee, would you like to meet up?" Honestly, I've wanted to say this ever since the first time I saw you. "I thought you were really cute. Was this a date?" It must be, right? I buried my face in my pillow, rolling around and squealing in excitement. All my roommates gathered around to help me figure out what to do. The moment I called out his name in the restaurant that day, he smiled and looked up at me. That was the start of our love, or so I thought. In another version of the story, the person Christopher actually intended to add on WeChat was Monica. During those 2 weeks of chatting with me, he was talking to me, but in his mind, he was imagining her face. It just so happened that I had never posted any pictures of myself in my WeChat moments, and my profile picture was just a silhouette from behind. So, even when I sat down in front of him at the restaurant that day, he didn't recognize me. I laughed at him then. How could you forget what I look like after just 2 weeks? Back then, Christopher looked shocked, confused, but he slowly smiled. Sorry, I guess I was a little nervous. Looking back now, that expression wasn't nervousness, it was regret. Chapter 7. Christopher's car has GPS tracking. I opened the app and followed the map to their location. It was rush hour. Traffic was incredibly slow. Countless times, I wished I could lose patience and just stop following them. But when I reached the destination, I found I still had a bit of patience left. Looking up at the familiar restaurant sign, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. 7 years ago, this was where Christopher and I had our first date. Now, he had brought Monica here, and he said he had no regrets. How could he not have regrets? Expressionless, I walked inside and chose a corner where Christopher couldn't see me. Dish after dish arrived. I ate while watching Christopher and Monica talk. I was curious what they would talk about. Would they chat as effortlessly as Christopher and I once did? This restaurant's small round tables were truly small. Their hands resting on the table were only inches apart. I don't know how long I watched, but eventually, I slowly raised my phone and recorded some videos. I captured her laughing, looking as lovely as ever. I also recorded his gentlemanly behavior. They really did look like the leads in a romantic drama. A couple who missed each other for 7 years because of a misunderstanding. Now, the fated lovers were reunited. The look from the waiter made me realize belatedly that my actions, spying and secretly recording, were straight out of a melodramatic soap opera. The villainess shamelessly clinging to the male lead's love. In the end, the male lead would embrace his true love. As for the villainess, she would be forgotten, discarded. But she had given her whole heart. Why did she have to be reduced to a mere supporting role? My chest ached terribly. I didn't want to watch anymore. I called the waiter over to pay the bill and pointed at Christopher's table. I'll pay for theirs as well. 7 years ago, Christopher treated me to our first meal. 7 years later, I'll treat him to this breakup dinner. Chapter 8. Christopher didn't come home until late at night. The moment he walked in, he started complaining about how his buddy had gotten him into trouble. He was holding a takeout box, which he placed in front of me like it was a treasure. I got you some fresh congee with liver to help with your iron levels. I knew it, you skipped dinner while I wasn't around. Didn't you? Christopher had always been meticulous in taking care of me. Even tonight, after his romantic French dinner with Monica, goose liver, steak, and all, he still thought about me not having dinner. I didn't move, just quietly watched as Christopher lovingly set the congee in front of me and handed me a spoon. The rising steam stung my eyes. With a nasal voice, I asked Christopher, "Is Monica beautiful?" Christopher seemed startled. His face instantly paled. "Why do you bring her up?" I stirred the congee, calmly saying, "She's your new model, right? That's why I'm asking if she's beautiful." After 3 seconds of silence, Christopher's hoarse voice came out. "She's not bad." Not bad? You're being too harsh. How could someone whose looks made you fall in love at first sight be not bad? How could someone you've been thinking about for 7 years be not bad? And what about me? Was I simply the consolation prize because I wasn't as attractive as her? What did my years of dedication mean to you? 7 years ago, when Christopher was anxiously waiting for me on our first date, he was actually imagining Monica's face. 7 years later, Christopher took Monica to the same restaurant. Did he really not think, even for a moment, about what could have been? If he hadn't added the wrong person back then, would he have dated Monica? Would they have been happy? Happier than we are now? My chest tightened, my eyes stinging even more. I shoved the bowl of congee away, looking up at him. If you had met her before meeting me, you would have pursued her, right? Christopher was lounging on the couch, undoing his shirt cuffs. His Adam's apple bobbed, his brow furrowing. It was as if he couldn't answer the question at all. After a long while, he finally said, "That's just a hypothetical." How could this be hypothetical? This is the truth. A truth that's been hidden for years. A truth he still wants to keep hidden. Does he not have the courage to admit it? I never knew he had such deep feelings for me. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, softly asking him, "Christopher, did Monica like the restaurant you chose?" Christopher's entire body stiffened. "Rachel, are you following me? You paid for our dinner, didn't you? And you even lied to the waiter, saying you were Monica's friend." "Yes, I had dinner with Monica, but it was just business. There were things I couldn't discuss in front of you." "But why are you acting so paranoid? Even though we're dating and will definitely get married in the future, we still need to give each other enough space, right?" Chapter 9. Christopher seemed pretty angry. I wasn't sure what exactly he was mad about. Maybe this is what people mean when they say someone is lashing out in shame. I raised my hand, made a should gesture, and pointed to the suitcase in the corner. "Don't make a scene. I've packed the essentials for you. Take it and go." Christopher turned his head and noticed the suitcase. A look of confusion crossed his face. "Am I going on a business trip?" "I don't remember. In all the years we've been running the business, Christopher has rarely gone on trips. He's introverted and dislikes socializing." I made sure to play to his strengths, letting him focus on design while I took care of production, delivery, and customer service. In the past, he would always say, "Rachel, you work so hard." But the moment Monica re-entered his life, he forgot all about my efforts. I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't want to waste any more words. "Let's break up. Christopher, please take your things and leave my home. I'll pack and send the rest of your stuff later. It shouldn't take long, 3, maybe 5 days. You know me. I don't like to drag things out. If you have any valuable items, let me know so I don't accidentally throw them out with the trash." I pushed myself up from the table and, as an afterthought, tossed the congee he brought into the trash. Like that ring, for example. It almost ended up in the toilet earlier. When I was rummaging through the cabinets earlier, I had come across the engagement ring Christopher had bought. It was beautiful. I had been so eager to wear a wedding dress and become his bride. But if love comes with flaws, then I can live without it. Christopher was stunned. He asked in disbelief, "Rachel, I know I messed up. I shouldn't have hidden the dinner with another girl from you. But you secretly spied on me. Isn't that wrong too?" His gaze flickered away for a moment before he continued, "How about we both take a step back? From now on, I'll never hide anything from you. Let's go back to how things were." Chapter 10. Christopher's apology was urgent, even sincere. But at this moment, all I felt was disappointment. Even now, he was still pretending Monica was just another girl. I didn't bother hiding the sarcasm and bitterness in my voice, but I don't want to go back to how things were. "Christopher, you make me feel disgusted. In the 7 years we've been together, I had never spoken to him so harshly." Christopher clenched his fists, squeezing the words through gritted teeth. "Rachel, what is wrong with you? Didn't I just apologize? You're really breaking up with me just because I had dinner with another woman? Don't you hear how ridiculous that sounds? Why can't I have dinner with her? We're not living in the dark ages. Shouldn't there at least be something concrete before you bring up breaking up?" His words were absurd, but I had to admit, there was a twisted logic to them. There are people who've caught their partners cheating in bed and still didn't break up. No wonder he felt wronged by me. But is he really the one who's wronged? Stop yelling. No matter how loud you shout, you won't have the guts to confess what's really in your heart. So what's the point? That one sentence pierced through Christopher's fragile restraint, leaving him on the verge of losing control. His hands, clasped on his knees, had turned into fists. Trembling slightly, "Rachel, what are you even saying? What kind of hidden motive could I possibly have?" He still didn't have the courage to admit it. Did he really need me to spell it out? I smiled faintly. 7 years ago. The girl you wanted to meet was Monica, right? But because our phone numbers were so similar, you added the wrong person. Even after being with me for all these years, even after buying a ring, you still can't forget her. You even told your friends that she was your first crush. Christopher, even if I overlook the fact that, at the start of our relationship, you had someone else in mind, I can't ignore that you don't even have the guts to be honest with me. So tell me, why should I keep someone like you in my life? The color drained from Christopher's face. He murmured, I was just afraid of losing you. I sat quietly on the couch, agreeing with him. Yes, you were afraid of losing me, but you were also afraid of losing her. Chapter 11. Years ago, I overheard some friends asking Christopher, what do you like about Rachel? She's so small and plain looking. I couldn't blame them for asking. After all, Christopher went to an art school, where even the stray cats around campus seemed more attractive than most people. But Christopher had adamantly defended me. She's great. She's cheerful, straightforward, decisive. She knows what she wants. He rattled off a list of my good traits, finally concluding, when I'm with her, I feel like a different person. Before that, I had always been vaguely insecure, worried that my ordinary looks weren't enough for Christopher. After all, he was the campus heartthrob, even getting hit on when buying a bottle of water. Meanwhile, I had never received any romantic attention from other guys. I had even asked Christopher, in a roundabout way, do you ever think I'm not pretty enough? He had quickly shaken his head and denied it. How could I be so shallow? At the time, I naively believed he could see past my ordinary appearance and love me for my soul, but it was all just a mistake from the beginning. Maybe he did like my personality, but he never forgot Monica's face. I imagine there were countless nights when he lay awake, wondering how perfect it would be if he could combine both of us into one person. But too bad. He'll have to live with regret. Christopher's face grew grayer and more ashen by the minute. He still hadn't given up trying to defend himself. But even when you're buying something, you shop around, right? Marriage is a huge deal. It's a lifetime commitment. Decades together. I just had some cold feet. Second thoughts for a few days. Is that really so wrong? And in the end, I still chose you. He thought that by choosing me, I would be grateful and feel honored. Maybe if we had only been together for 7 days, 7 weeks, or even 7 months, I could understand him having doubts before marriage. But we've been together for 7 years. How did that not make him more certain of us? Instead, it gave him the illusion that if it had been her all along, maybe they could have had the same 7 years together. I wasn't the only one who regretted this. I regretted giving my heart to someone like him, ignoring his pathetic defense. I calmly stated the facts. Well, you better figure out your place. I'm not buying whatever you're selling. After a few minutes of silence, Christopher lowered his head in defeat. I sat quietly on the couch, not even looking at him. Christopher finally picked up his suitcase. I don't agree with the breakup. I'll stay at a friend's tonight. Let's talk again when we're both in a better frame of mind. What a joke. Did he really think I needed his approval to break up? I called his name. Wait. Christopher paused, a small smile tugging at his lips. Can't bear to let me go? We can talk now if you want. I sighed lightly. Then I told him plainly, I'll have a lawyer handle the business handover. I expect your cooperation. The anger in Christopher's eyes flared instantly. Rachel, don't let your personal feelings affect work. I let out a cold laugh. Christopher, we've broken up. You don't get to tell me how to handle things anymore. Chapter 12. The door slammed shut. Silence filled the room. So quiet. I could hear my own steady heartbeat. I sat on the couch for a while, then walked over to the window, intending to pull the curtains closed. From up high, I looked down at Christopher standing outside. He seemed upset. He kicked the steel railing hard. Then he jumped up, clutching his foot. Next, he picked up his phone and slammed it to the ground. He even turned around, as if he was about to re-enter the building. But in the end, he dragged his suitcase toward the intersection. The red light turned green. The cars surged onto the street. In the blink of an eye, Christopher's figure disappeared from sight. In those few minutes, It felt like I had said goodbye to the version of myself from the past 7 years. It was painful, but also liberating. That night, I couldn't sleep, just as I expected. I tried soaking in the bath, counting sheep, using essential oils. None of it worked, and I still couldn't fall asleep, so I took out a bottle of red wine from the cabinet. I don't usually drink, but tonight, I made an exception. Consider it an early celebration for forgetting about Christopher. Loving him took me 7 years. Forgetting him should take less time. When dawn broke, I finally drifted off to sleep. Not long after, I was woken by a call from the company. It was Christopher's assistant. She anxiously asked me, "Rachel, there's an issue with a payment to a supplier. The bank won't process it. Can you come and handle it?" In the past, I would have taken care of all these minor details. But today, I just yawned and said, "Go find Christopher." The assistant was stunned. "Rachel, is everything okay between you and Mr. Shen?" Even through the fog of my wine-induced haze, I could sense the hidden meaning in her words. "Do you know something?" I asked. After a moment of hesitation, she stammered, "Well, I've been meaning to tell you." When Monica came in for her interview, Mr. Shin didn't look right. Honestly, we all thought she didn't really fit the style of the new collection. But Mr. Shin insisted on keeping her. During a break on the first shoot, I overheard Monica asking Mr. Shin, "Have we met before?" That's when his expression got all distant. I let out a slow awe, as if I were hearing someone else's story. The assistant continued, sounding regretful. Mr. Shin said, "Years ago, I did ask for your number, but now, I have someone I love deeply." "Really?" "So, there was a time when Christopher made a firm choice for me. What a shame. That choice only lasted a few days." Chapter 13. I hung up the phone, set it to silent, and went back to sleep. When I woke up, it was already evening. My phone was flooded with unread messages. There were some work-related issues. Ignored. A few funny videos from my friends. I replied with haha. My parents reminded me to take my supplements on time. Read. Oh, and there were messages from Christopher's friend. In the past 2 hours, he had called me 13 times and sent 27 messages. "Rachel, Christopher's drunk. He's been calling your name. He's really hurting. 7 years of a relationship isn't easy to throw away. Can you come see him?" What the hell? Like I don't know how difficult a 7-year relationship is. I'm the one who lived it. Does some outsider need to tell me how tough it was? Even a stranger knows how hard it is. So why did Christopher destroy it so easily? I replied, "Oops, I forgot to block you too. Let me do that now. Thanks." I holed up at home for 3 or 4 days, eating chips, barbecue, and chugging bubble tea. The joy from junk food was fleeting. Every so often, sharp pains would shoot through my chest. Letting go of the person I had been for the past 7 years really hurt. But I shouldn't feel sad about losing something I never truly had. Losing the wrong person should make me feel happy. On the 5th day, I finally pulled myself together, updated my resume, and reached out to a former colleague for a referral. After graduating from university, I had worked at a magazine, and my career had good prospects. But Christopher's business kept failing. In his first year after graduation, he and a friend tried selling his hand-drawn t-shirts. They lost 200,000 yuan. He was ready to give up. But when I saw him cry, I quit my job and helped him with marketing. I did the market research, analyzed trends, and worked on brand positioning. I put together a business plan and laid out a product development strategy. That plan saved Christopher's company. After that, whenever someone praised his designs, he'd always say, "It's not all my work. Our products sell well because my designs hold up in the market. But my girlfriend is the real genius. She's the one who saw the potential and packaged the product for the market. She's the one with the true talent." Back then, he would constantly talk about my contributions. Our friends would joke that he was whipped. No one expected we'd eventually go our separate ways. So when my old colleague asked, "Weren't you running a business with your boyfriend?" I answered frankly, "We broke up. Now, I'm going to pursue the career I really want." Before long, interview invitations came flooding in. I happily returned to the company where I had once worked. My former assistant was now my peer. She said, "I hope you'll adjust to the new workload. There's nothing I can't handle. In fact, I need to keep busy. That way, I won't have time to wallow in self-pity when I think about Christopher. Even if love failed, my career can only get better." But on the night I treated my team to celebrate my return, I saw someone standing outside the office. Christopher, almost begging, asked me, "Rachel, can you give me one more chance to chase you?" Chapter 14. It had been over 40 days since the breakup. It wasn't the first time Christopher had lingered outside my apartment, but I had already instructed the security guard not to let him in. He had complained to all of our friends. I kept my dignity and his, never revealing the true reason for our breakup. So a few people still spoke up for him, the ones who gently tried to talk me into reconciling. I just brushed off with a smile, but one woman said something particularly interesting. "I was really looking forward to your wedding. I even set aside money for your gift. Rachel, Christopher didn't do anything unforgivable, did he? You should understand that everyone makes mistakes. Haven't you ever made mistakes?" At that moment, I was working on a proposal, and her words interrupted my train of thought, irritating me, suppressing my annoyance. I asked her, "How are things with your boyfriend?" She replied, "We're great. We just got our marriage license and are planning the wedding for next year." I sighed. "But the other day, I saw your boyfriend having dinner with his ex. Did you know that?" She almost immediately started shouting, "That's impossible. He loves me. Where did you see this?" I said, "I'll send you the photo." Her voice was shaky, on the verge of tears. Okay, send it. I'll throw it in his face and cut him to pieces. How dare he two-time me." I sent her the photo of Christopher and Monica having dinner together. There was an audible sigh of relief on the other end. She calmed down. "Rachel, you made a mistake. That's not my boyfriend, and that's not his ex." I chuckled and said, "You're right, because that's Christopher and the girl he used to like. People don't feel the pain until the whip cracks across their own back." The woman awkwardly apologized, her voice thick with embarrassment. I guess she spread the word because after that, no one else tried to talk me into getting back together. So now Christopher was making his own appearance. Every Friday, I'd receive a huge bouquet of roses, and my favorite bubble tea. My social media would show a constant stream of visits from unknown users. Suddenly, I felt glad that I had quickly found a new job. Only a glowing ex can be remembered as an unforgettable first love. So let him admire me from afar for the rest of his life. Chapter 15. Christopher had lost a lot of weight. He looked dejected and pitiful. I ignored him and simply called for my colleagues to get in the car. Christopher watched me leave with a forlorn expression. I thought he'd finally give up. But after our team dinner, I saw him again at the restaurant door. We had spent more than 3 hours eating and chatting. It must have been difficult for Christopher to wait all that time outside. Still, I continued to ignore him. He was persistent, though, always trailing a step behind me, constantly apologizing. "Rachel, I've reflected on everything. It's all my fault. No one else's." That day, Monica threatened me. She said if I didn't have dinner with her, she'd tell you about how I added the wrong person. I was so worried you'd misunderstand. So I agreed to have dinner with her. But who could have predicted you'd still misunderstand? I've been thinking about you day and night. You're the most important woman in my life. My feelings for her were shallow, temporary. But for you, my feelings will last a lifetime. His words were full of affection, but they didn't move me. I pointed toward the road ahead and made a pleased gesture. "Excuse me, but don't stand in my way." Christopher hesitated at my cold response, but he couldn't help himself from speaking again. "Rachel, I'm genuinely begging for your forgiveness." Even the ancients said, "To err is human, but to correct one's mistakes is divine." A while back, I had accompanied my boss to a motivational seminar. The speaker had said, "Controlling your temper is a form of cultivation, a sign of true mastery." Well, I suppose I'm not very cultivated, because I really wanted to curse him out. The car I had called was still 10 minutes away. That should be enough time to tear into Christopher one more time. I asked nonchalantly, "You want my forgiveness? What are you offering me in exchange?" Christopher immediately nodded, his face full of sincerity. Rachel, I'll do anything for your forgiveness. I'll even give you the company, okay? When I'm with you, I feel like I'm the best version of myself. You're the one who encouraged me and helped me build the business step by step. I'm sure that with you in charge, the company will be even more successful than with me. It seemed like Christopher was offering me everything he had, but I had heard rumors that his company was facing serious issues due to poor quality control. Their new products were riddled with defects. Many customers had complained about clothes tearing and even causing skin irritation. Sales were plummeting, and negative reviews were pouring in. From what I could estimate, he was likely suffering heavy losses. On top of that, he had recently liquidated my shares in the company, so his available funds must be running low. If his cash flow dried up, the company would be done for. And yet, in the middle of all this business failure, Monica had somehow come to Christopher's rescue. She personally stepped in, using her account with a few thousand followers to promote his brand. Unfortunately, she had overestimated her influence. Her social media post didn't even make a ripple. I smirked. What makes you think I'd be interested in taking over a company on the verge of bankruptcy? And what makes you think I still want someone as fickle as you? The pain in Christopher's eyes became even more pronounced. He stared at me, like a sad, abandoned puppy. I admit it, I was shallow, tempted by her looks. But she's the real problem, isn't she? I told her countless times that I have a girlfriend, that you are my girlfriend, and that I love you deeply. But she kept finding ways to show up in my life. She's used to being the other woman, so she knew exactly how to wedge herself between us. That's why she's so shameless and despicable. I was always clear-minded, though she never influenced me at all. Rachel, please don't let her get to you either, okay? Chapter 16. Every word out of Christopher's mouth caught me off guard. I had thought he had completely forgotten my contributions. It turned out he hadn't forgotten at all, and I had also thought that Monica was still some kind of pure, delicate flower in his mind. But even she could be mercilessly trampled by him. I straightened my wind-blown hair and said slowly, "You were clear-minded?" From where I stand, a clear-minded person wouldn't walk a tightrope, because the moment you fall, you end up in a mess like this. Christopher, you've already fallen. Christopher froze. It was as if someone had gripped his throat, making it hard for him to breathe. After a few seconds, he managed to speak with difficulty. I could never really like Monica. If you knew the kind of person she was, you'd understand. I've done my research. All her ex-boyfriends were rich heirs worth billions. She spent years in that circle and never got anywhere. That's why she left Shanghai and came back here, to find a reliable man to marry. And she just happened to set her sights on me. She saw how well I treated you and figured I'd treat her the same. So she wanted to steal me away. But how could I let her? Someone like her, who's been passed around, doesn't deserve to be my legitimate wife. Christopher's words were full of righteous indignation, as if the dinner that led to our breakup was entirely Monica's fault. The reason Christopher demeaned her so much was because he thought I'd view winning back a man as some sort of victory, that this battle would be about snatching a man from a worthless woman. But sadly, I have no interest in digging through trash. All I felt was disbelief. If you think she's not good enough to be your wife, why did you take her out to dinner? Because you thought if other men could have fun with her, you could too, right? Christopher looked stunned. It took him a long moment to stammer out a denial. No, that's not it. Rachel, a lifetime is a long time. I just couldn't be satisfied with only you. But don't worry, once we're married, I won't stray. In his eyes, I could no longer find the love that had once been there. All I could see was a stranger, a chilling, bone-deep stranger. I lowered my head, fiddling with my phone, and sent the recording I had just made to Monica. I'm done with him. Do whatever you want. I had only made the recording in case Christopher said something especially cruel, but now it had found a new purpose. Beauty, when combined with wealth or intelligence, is an unbeatable hand. But beauty alone is a losing game. Monica, unfortunately, was the latter. She had accepted all the privileges society gives to beautiful women, but also faced all the temptations that come with it. Her beauty had given her access to a world of excess and indulgence, But sadly, none of the men she met were good men. So, Christopher caught her eye. He fit her ideal of a reliable man, someone who could offer a simple, stable life. But she wasn't smart enough. If winning over a man with a girlfriend gave her a sense of pride, then the struggles she's faced in love all these years are, indeed, her own doing. I had demonstrated for her what should be done. Some people just belong in the trash, but she treated that kind of man like treasure. I hoped the recording would help her see the truth. As for whether she'd turn her love into hate and retaliate against Christopher by sabotaging his upcoming product launch as his model, that was beyond my control. After sending the recording, I looked back at Christopher. This time, I spoke clearly and firmly. Get lost. Before I call the police for harassment, the car I had called was already parked at the curb. When Christopher saw me about to leave, he rushed to block the door. Rachel, stop pretending. You still have feelings for me. It's been months since we broke up, and you haven't dated anyone else. In the time since we broke up, plenty of people had tried to introduce me to new potential partners. I had politely declined. It wasn't because I hadn't moved on from Christopher. It was because I enjoyed my single life. I believed love wasn't everything to me. My career, my friendships, they filled my life just fine. But I never imagined that this would make Christopher think I was waiting for him. I looked at Christopher one last time. Then I couldn't help but laugh. Why don't you just die? If you're still alive, how dare you expect me to remain loyal to you? All the light left Christopher's eyes. He looked at me with a complicated expression. It was like he was seeing for the first time that I was a cold-hearted woman. I looked at him the same way, because I had finally realized he was just an ordinary, unimpressive man. It was my love that had made him special. Without it, he was no different from anyone else. I got into the car, just before the door closed. I heard a faint, hoarse "I'm sorry," but the wind quickly blew it away. The car sped down the road. In the rearview mirror, I could still see Christopher's defeated figure. He staggered after the car for a few steps. When he realized he couldn't catch up, he crumpled to the ground, clutching his hair, sobbing loudly. Some passers-by stopped to ask if he needed help, but he shook his head. I knew what he wanted most was my comfort. In the past, seeing him lonely, lost, or panicked after making a mistake, I would always soften. I'd gently reassure him, "Don't worry. I'm here. I'll be with you forever." But he had destroyed the version of me that loved him. I would never soften for him again. Loving him was something that happened a long time ago. Chapter 17, Extra Story. Years later, when Christopher thought back to his fleeting glimpse of Monica, there were still moments when he felt a sense of confusion. But each time, he tried to console himself. Rachel was great too. Although she wasn't as beautiful, she was smart. He could talk to her about anything, and she could keep up. When he wanted to start a business and failed several times, she was always by his side. To be honest, Christopher's company only succeeded because she helped him build it. So, he felt fortunate that 7 years ago, he didn't cancel that fateful date. Sure, he regretted adding the wrong person. Rachel's looks couldn't compare to Monica's at all. But her personality, he had to admit, won him over. Christopher thought to himself, a man should marry a virtuous woman. Rachel was probably the best match for him, but fate had other plans. On the very day he bought the engagement ring, he saw Monica again. Even after 7 years, he recognized her at first sight. How could he not? She was stunning. 7 years ago, they had only exchanged phone numbers in passing. But this time, he had a real reason to approach her. Christopher casually mentioned his accomplishments and, of course, his relationship. He thought he was being subtle. He believed this kind of boasting wouldn't make Monica fall for him, and it would still give him a sense of satisfaction. But things didn't go as he planned. The more he praised how well he treated his girlfriend, the more attentive Monica became toward him. Christopher started feeling conflicted. But after he had his friends look into Monica's past, his infatuation turned to anger. She was just looking for a man to settle down with. So why not toy with her a little? After all, he was clear-headed. If it wasn't out of love, it couldn't be considered cheating. And anyway, he was about to get married. the bride would, of course, be Rachel, the woman who had shared his struggles and triumphs. But if his whole life was going to be spent with Rachel, wasn't that a bit unsatisfying? So he took Monica to that restaurant, the same restaurant where he and Rachel had their first date. Watching Monica snap pictures, edit them, and post them, he felt a wave of disdain. How could someone be so shallow and clueless? She was no match for Rachel at all. In the end, his decision to stick with Rachel had been the right one. But Christopher never could have predicted that Rachel would break up with him over a single dinner. What had he done? What had he done wrong? They hadn't even slept together. Christopher had practically screamed, "I don't agree to break up." But she had already packed his suitcase. In just a few short hours. How could she not hesitate at all? Even if she knew the truth about how things started, couldn't she at least consider their 7 years together? Christopher fumed, thinking, fine, breaking up is good. If she could end things so easily, it meant she didn't love him. And besides, maybe without the emotional baggage, he'd rediscover Monica's charms? Christopher tried to find them, but the more he looked, the more disappointed he became. So what if she was beautiful? Was that enough to live on? After Rachel left, the company's issues multiplied, leaving him overwhelmed. The only thing that moved him during that time was Monica offering to help. She posted several ads for him using her account. At least she wasn't just treating him as a meal ticket. That touched him a little. It even reignited his confidence. If Monica liked him so much, then maybe Rachel still felt the same way. He had asked around. It had been over 4 months since their breakup, and she hadn't dated anyone new. Feeling confident, Christopher went to ask for reconciliation. On his way there, memories kept flooding back. There he was on the university basketball court, drenched in sweat, with Rachel holding his clothes and bringing him water. There was their first sunrise together at the beach, where he gave her his jacket and caught a cold himself. And there were the frantic, chaotic days when their online clothing store had its first big wave of orders. So many shared memories. Rachel must be finding it hard to let go, too. But once again, Christopher had miscalculated. She treated him with the same coldness as before. This made him angry. He wanted to get back at her. He was going to stay with Monica. Let Rachel see him with his beautiful new girlfriend. She would regret it. But Christopher soon realized something was wrong. Although Monica had accepted his confession, she had completely changed. Not only was she spending recklessly with his credit card, but she had also boldly used company funds, salaries for over 20 employees, payments due to suppliers. She used it all to buy herself a luxury car. This wasn't someone who wanted a simple, stable life with him. Furious, Christopher broke up with Monica. On the surface, she accepted it calmly. But behind his back, she posted online, accusing Christopher of being a terrible person. She said he was petty in relationships and sold subpar products in his business. That was the last straw. The company completely collapsed. In his panic, Christopher thought of Rachel. Maybe she would help him? Selflessly, like she always had before. But when he got to Rachel's apartment, he saw her moving out. Word had it she'd been promoted and was moving to another city. Helping her with her things was a young guy, looking clean and polite. He was calling her sister, but the admiration in his eyes was clear. Christopher suddenly stopped in his tracks. He had been wrong, completely and utterly wrong. He had wasted her love. So what right did he have to go looking for her now?